I'll call this meeting of the Lane County Board of Commissioners to order. Welcome to Harris Hall this morning. Glad you're all here. We have a very long meeting today. No, actually, it's a relatively short one. Today is April 25th, and this is our regular session. Commissioners, adjustments to the agenda. I see none. Then we will move forward with public comments. Thank you. The Board of Commissioners provides for a public comment. Speakers will be taken in the order in which they sign up and limited to 3 minutes of public comment, at the end of which you'll hear a little beep which signals the end of your 3 minutes, at which point if you could summarize and step down. When I call you to the mic, please state your name and address for the record. I'm going to delay just about 30 seconds before we begin. The first speaker today is Ann Milholland. Good morning.
Good morning. Ann Milholland, 2685 Benson Lane, Eugene, 97408. I'm on the working group for poverty and homelessness for the Human Rights Commission for the city of Eugene. And I want to speak to you about co-adopting Eugene's ordinance that governs overnight sleeping in the form of car camping and rest stops. There aren't enough options for people who are unhoused. And what we would like to suggest to you is that for the urbanizable area that is currently under county codes, that in that area you co-adopt this Eugene Municipal Code, Section 4.816, which permits overnight sleeping. And this governs sleeping overnight in a camper, trailer, and so on, in a parking lot of a religious institution, place of worship, business or public entity that owns or leases the parking lot and occupied structure and so on. It also authorizes a single-family residence in a residential zoning area with permission of the owner and tenant of the resident that one camp could be set up. And the third thing it allows is sleeping overnight in a vehicle, camper, or trailer on a paved or graveled surface located on a vacant or unoccupied parcel with the permission of the property owner. So in all of these cases, it would be the property owner actually that says they would like to have allowed one or more people who are currently unhoused be able to sleep in a tent or other vehicle. And in the urbanizable area, it's currently under the county's code. So currently under the county's code, that is not legal. We would like to expand the possibilities for overnight camping to the urbanizable area within the Eugene urban growth boundary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Milholland. Next, we have Ed McMahon.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ed McMahon, and I'm proud to be the Executive Director of the Home Builders Association of Lane County. The Envision Eugene package is currently being deliberated among the Eugene and Lane County Planning Commissions and will soon be before you. I come before you today to express the major concern that I have relating to the Envision Eugene package and hope for your support to remedy the situation. I was a member of the Envision Eugene Technical Resource Group, and it was my impression that throughout the process, the residential buildable land inventory that was going to be presented to you was going to be lot specific or parcel specific, tax lot specific. I learned 2 weeks ago that that process has been delayed, and the buildable land inventory that will be presented to you will not be partial Pacific. That becomes a problem for several reasons. One reason is unless the buildable land inventory is tax lot specific, I have no way to confirm the accuracy of the buildable land inventory being presented to you. Another reason, the city's reliance on a large-scale, generalized Metro Plan diagram to make zoning decisions for housing violates Goal 10 and the needed housing statute because it results in unreasonable cost and time delays. Allow me to present a case study. A matter of rezoning a 121-acre Laurel Ridge site for residential. The property owner annexed the 121 acres to the city in 2007 and applied for R1 zoning it was entitled to in 2013. The request for R1 zoning to match the Metro Plan went to the hearings official 3 times, the Planning Commission twice, LUBA twice, and the Court of Appeals once. The current status is that the hearings official has approved a map for the area to be zoned R1, and the city staff is still trying to define the R1 boundary with the meets and bounds legal description. If we had partial Pacific inventory, that would not be a problem. Thus, the owner's request for the R1 zoning is now more than 4 years in the process, and the owner still does not have a zoning boundary line that can be the basis for his housing development application. The owner has already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this process just to get the residential zoning to match the plan, zoning that the owner's entitled to. This property should already be an established neighborhood with families living in the homes, yet not one shovel of dirt has been turned yet. If the city had a partial Pacific Metro Plan diagram like Cottage Grove, Veneta, Coburg, Almady, Corvallis, and other modern cities, the ultimate cost of housing on a site like this could be greatly reduced. I presented you with more details on this subject. It's interesting reading. It's in the back and will be presented to you after the meeting. I also attached a map of the residential buildable land inventory on the very top of that. I was hoping to have it before you because I wanted to point out that way more than 50% of the buildable land inventory is in the South Hills. Commissioners, it's very important that the buildable land inventory become partial Pacific. I have thought about maybe accomplishing this in 2 ways. Maybe you can come up with more. My first would be to request or maybe demand the city bring you a partial Pacific inventory, but I have concerns about that approach. With 2 ordinances coming your way, I'm afraid that the single-family ordinance could just be put on the shelf collecting dust, waiting for this partial Pacific inventory with no timeline to know when it's going to be done. Another approach, since this is a community asset, a benefit for all, is to have LCOG do the work. After all, the information is a benefit to the community, and it can be done in a reasonable amount of time where you can make appropriate decisions. Now, my time's about up, so I conclude my comments by thanking each and every one of you for your commitment to the community. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McMahon. This concludes the list we have signed up to speak to the commission this morning. Would anyone else in the room wish to address the county commission on any matter this morning? I see none. Then I will close the public forum, excuse me, and open the floor to commissioners' response to public comments. And before I call another commissioners, I'm going to mention one thing myself, and this is for you, Ms. Mulholland. You mentioned Eugene Ordinance 4.816. That's a very reasonable ordinance. It's been revised several times since the committee that I chaired, which was the Council Committee on Homelessness and Youth, which convened in the 1990s, late 1990s. It came up with that ordinance, which has been revised several times since. Few, if any, complaints have ever been received regarding the ordinance specifically, sometimes regarding actions of campers within within the ordinance, but that's usually behavior rather than the actual nature of the ordinance. And it is something that works well for the city of Eugene, and you're suggesting the urbanizable land, or the urbanized land inside of the urban growth boundary that's not annexed to, that's not a part of the city at this point in time. That's something that I would like for the commission to take up and consider that. Thank you for bringing it before us this morning. That's something that we have spoken about a little bit, and at some point later on in this day, I will ask for the commissioners for what we call head nods for a future agenda item to specifically discuss the ordinance, the Eugene ordinance, and how it may apply to Lane County land. Thank you very much. At this point, I'll open it to a response from commissioners. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also want to say to Ms. Mulholland, thank you very much for bringing that forward. It sounds like to me that you're maybe more interested in urbanizable land around the city of Eugene, because I think that would make sense at this point in time if it's going to include Lane County. And I will look to my Eugene colleagues to take the lead on that. But obviously with something like this, I have not had any conversations with Mayor Lumberg in the city of Springfield. And of course we have 11 other incorporated cities in Lane County as well. But if you were more specific toward urbanizable land in Eugene, again, I'll look to Commissioner Farr and Commissioner Sorensen on that, because obviously I don't live in Eugene, so but they do obviously, and so I'll look to their leadership on that. And I appreciate. But thank you very much for coming forward this morning, and for Mr. McMahon, I appreciate it. Thank you. Lot specific. As you well know, I've been a part of the home building industry for many years, and I think that was that's actually that was actually pretty in tune of you to really point that out. One of the ways, obviously, Envision Eugene, the only way it becomes legal is if Lane County co-adopts it, period, and before it even goes to the state. And so we're going to have our opportunity, obviously, to ask questions of the City of Eugene staff as well. And if no changes are coming forward, we can ask specific questions, and we can actually return it back if that's the will of the board. So I think there's some options here to take a look at. And while I've long complained about SB 100 and Oregon State land use on certain aspects, there is a lot of what I call firewalls in place. So before municipal governments can just expand urban growth boundaries, they have to go through significant amounts of process before doing so. And so I appreciate you bringing that forward. I think it's important to note, especially on the South Hills, and this has nothing to do with South Eugene or anything, it has to do with the word hills. And give you an idea, if you want to build a 1,500 square foot house, it's probably going to cost the consumer about $500,000 to $600,000 just on the excavation cost, just on the foundation costs alone on building on hillside. I mean, it's very expensive, and especially in the state of Oregon with so many of the different land use processes we have to go through. If you were building in another state, maybe not so much. So, but I appreciate that. Good conversation. Good from the public this morning. Thank you both for taking your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. Commissioner Bozievich. Thank
you. So I'll add a head nod to Commissioner Farr for maybe a future agenda item to talk about the ordinance 4.816. And also I'd like to ask the administrator to maybe look into and maybe report back to the board under his time in the next board meeting about what steps we might have available to us as the county relative to the parcel-specific residential lands inventory for Eugene. There was some mention about having LCOG or and even I don't know if the county staff might be able to assist in helping that, but I think it's a really important item to have available. But I also want to understand legally where it's not our plan, so where we stand. So maybe just both those items can be referred to the administrator maybe to report back on us. But it is really important to have that parcel specific inventory. And I'll state my concern right now for splitting the Envision Eugene process between commercial and industrial land and residential. I think that needs to stay in a single process, single timeline, And I'm greatly concerned that faced with the housing crisis Oregon is in now, which drives the need for a camping ordinance, that Envision Eugene is looking at an inventory that's unrealistic. As I look at the more detailed maps and remember my days of doing engineering work, a lot of the parcels they're showing as available land, I actually looked at with developers and rejected for development for multiple reasons, whether it was a lack of ability to serve with utilities or too steep or wetlands. It just, without a parcel specific inventory, you can't go back and look at some of that. And it's just really kind of a crime that's moving forward without that. And I don't believe that there's a reason to separate the industrial from the residential. I think they need to be tied together in a single ordinance.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozievich. Commissioner Sorensen.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much for your public comment today, and I appreciate hearing more about this issue. I would be very interested, as long as we're going to have some kind of report back on this, I would be very interested in, and this could be from you as well, sir, whether other communities in the work that we've done for Junction City, Cottage Grove, Springfield, where we have had the same concerns about, well, what actual land is the city proposing to change for its designation? Have we had parcel specific requirements on them? And if so, how difficult was that? Did LCOG do that work? Is that a way to reconcile the truth-telling of when the city says a certain amount of land is going to be available for certain types of uses? How did they come up with that number? Was it an estimate, or was it a specific, code and commitment? And if so, in these previous Junction City, I guess we've had Junction, since I've been here, I think we've had at least Junction City, Springfield, previous Eugene, Florence. So those cities, whether they've been held to this standard, and if LCOG's available to do this work, and whether the city is requesting it or not. And I think that would get a little bit more of this on the table as far as the residential land supply study that we were shown a map of this morning. Do you know, maybe, Mr. Mokrajski, do you know if this is a parcel specific property? For example, I see some big yellow areas, low density residential. Are those generic areas, or are those very specific parcels of land? Do we know?
I do not,
yeah.
And I don't have the map in front of me.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess, I think all these questions by the commissioners are getting to the questions of how difficult would this be, and some of the commissioners, myself included, have had experience with this problem where it's not clear what the designation really is. At the outer edges, we've had the problem of the scale of the map, and someone used a pen, and the pen was a very fine pen, but when you blow this thing up to the scale you've got it at, that pen width could be a quarter mile or more. So the I-5 is on this map, and we know generally how wide I-5 is, but if you blew this map up, you'd probably have an I-5 that was about 3 miles across. So, I mean, how accurate have we? And then my question has to do with not holding Eugene to a low standard, but holding Eugene to the same standard of whatever we've held the other communities to.
Thank you for those questions, Commissioner Sorensen. I saw Mr. Mokrajski taking a lot of notes, so thank you. Commissioner Williams, then Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
First of all, I'd like to thank the individuals who offered public comment. That was very helpful. And beyond that, I appreciate the comments from my fellow commissioners and their insights. And beyond that, I'll reserve comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. I have something to say. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So real quickly, the City of Springfield's plan, the 2030 plan, did not include residential. So they did not look for residential. So you don't have to go through lot specific. That was specifically toward commercial and industrial lands. So it's a little bit different than looking from the residential side. And so that's why we didn't necessarily get into the back and forth with the City of Springfield whether you have lot specific, because that wasn't their ask. Their ask is really for the job creating land is what they were looking to expand. And just one more time for the record, I'd like to note that I was in my second term as mayor in 2007 when House Bill 3337 was passed that split the urban growth boundaries. And we're in 2017, 10 years later, and still looking forward to that Envision Eugene plan to come before the Lane County Board of Commissioners. And so nothing like molasses. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. You know, Mr. McMahon, you mentioned you were on the Technical Resource Group, the TRG. You may recall that back in 2010, so was I. And prior to that, the CRG, the Community Resource Group that met in 2009, 2010. And here we are once again, all these years later, and still no resolution regarding residential land. And if you try to find a place to rent or buy inside of Eugene or in the immediate adjacent area, including Springfield, because of the land supply in Eugene, you'll find it's very expensive. I think the last I heard is based upon comparison to median income, the second most expensive market to buy or rent in the nation. So pretty amazing. And a part of it is because we have dragged our heels since 2010 when the TRG first began meeting regarding residential land. And I'm looking at this map right here, and the shaded yellow on the map is residential land that's available inside the Eugene urban growth boundary. The vast preponderance of it is in the extreme south hills of Eugene. The extreme south hills of Eugene, and if you drive up there, you'll notice that there's a great deal of slope there, a lot of riparian land in that area. And if we don't have lot specific, then it's very difficult to say which part of this yellow is actually developable until you actually have lot specific, parcel specific inventory. So I'm in favor of discussion about it, and I think it's, rather than belabor it at this point in time, Mr. Mokrzycki's heard from the commission and is something that we perhaps will talk about later on during agenda team requests. And thank you for being here this morning. One last thing I'd like to say, and this is a really cool thing, you guys. A couple of weeks ago, we went through a very, very, very lengthy process. We had interviews in this room with 26 applicants to replace Commissioner Faye Stewart for the East Lane position on the board of directors. And at the end of the day, after 26 applicants, we're narrowed down to 9, we're narrowed down to 6, we're narrowed down to 3. One, sitting before you, became the replacement of Commissioner Stewart. Today is Commissioner Williams' first regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. So we'd like to welcome Commissioner Williams. Thank you for going through the lengthy process, and welcome to the board. The cake is upstairs. This concludes the commissioner responses. I see no further responses. Emergency business, Mr. Mokrzycki.
We have none today, Mr. Chair.
Then item number 5 is our Lane Genuity Award. Mr. Mokrzycki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd also offer my welcome to Commissioner Williams. Look forward to working with you, and congratulations again. I also want to welcome the students here from the University of Oregon who've joined us for a county day, and they'll be introduced by Shanda Miller in a moment. And I want to just take a moment to thank Shanda for the great work that she's done in coordinating this day. She really has been the lead in pulling this effort together in our efforts to create a stronger and ongoing partnership with the University of Oregon and encourage a pipeline of talent into this organization.
And we don't have a sausage manufacturing plant here in Eugene, so this is the next best place.
That's right. Okay, Mr. Chair, now I'd like to invite Dan Hurley and Keith Hendricks up to the table. And maybe you can have, do you want to have the rest of your group come on up? And sure. I don't know that we have. Maybe at least to the front row. Yeah, to the front row here. This should be recycled, but I'm just using this as a prop here. Because I want you to think about, we're going to talk about trash, okay? One of the things that we don't always talk about, but is a critical service that Lane County provides, is our waste management division. And of course, they do incredible work, and I think are really the leaders in the state in encouraging recycling throughout the community. But for waste that is produced in Lane County, it ends up at our landfill at Short Mountain. And so think about that. Every time we take, again, this should be recycled, but let's pretend this is a piece of plastic that's being thrown away. Every time we take a piece of trash and we throw it in the garbage can, it ends up somewhere. It ends up at Short Mountain, our landfill. And our ability to meet the long-term needs of our community in handling and managing the waste that is produced in Lane County, a county of nearly 5,000 square miles and 350,000 residents, is largely dependent on the extent to which we work with our residents and educate and inform about recycling opportunities and waste mitigation, and then how we handle the actual trash that is collected. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is compaction effectiveness, the extent to which we efficiently manage the waste that we collect at Short Mountain to extend the useful life of our landfill. So the Waste Management Division has been tracking compaction density at Short Mountain Landfill annually since at least 2005. Again, compaction density is the measure of the amount of waste by weight compacted into a measured amount of space by volume. And this is obviously a critical measure that indicates the utilization efficiency of the available landfill space. In 2005, the compaction density at Short Mountain was 1,667 pounds per cubic yard. Pretty good, which is by industry standards is considered a good level of compaction. In 2014, the landfill began capturing density metrics on a quarterly basis, and the data became more easily available to capture because the county surveying team began using laser surveying equipment that is able to scan the surface of the landfill remotely. In 2015, the division installed GPS equipment on the primary compactor, providing operators with real-time visual feedback on compaction while they're operating the equipment. So they get, as they're compacting the material on the equipment, they can actually read the effectiveness of the work that they're doing. This past quarter, the density was measured at 2,160 pounds per cubic yard, which is the highest density achieved so far at the landfill. Now, the value of this is that the current density equates to a 30% increase in compaction since 2005. Put another way, the county will have 30% more space available to fill at the landfill with no additional cost to infrastructure, and the landfill will last 30% longer as a resource for Lane County citizens. The increase in density will allow an additional 827,500 tons of waste. I don't know how much that is.
That's a lot.
That would fill this room and
get
more.
About 250,000 tons a year, so that's several years worth.
So 827,500 tons of waste to be disposed in the newly constructed landfill cell. The increased density and therefore the increased lifespan of the landfill saves approximately $225,000 per year. So as the board has identified as one of its top priorities to create long-term financial stability for the organization. We spent a lot of time talking about the general fund and the road fund that are financially distressed. Well, the waste management fund is one that the board has also spent a significant amount of time over the course of the past 3 years looking both at fee adjustments on the revenue side as well as operational improvements on the expense side, and made a number of improvements there. So the extent, again, to which we can efficiently manage the waste that we collect and reduce costs helps with our long-term financial stability in the waste management fund and efficiently utilizing land and resources in our community. So we're here today because, as the board is aware, we created a Lane Genuity, an award program to recognize outstanding process improvements throughout the organization that are created. We know these things are happening throughout Lane County with a 90% decline in federal timber funding and about $40 million per year less that we collect today than we collected just 10 years ago. And the seventh, it's now sideways, but we'll show it in a minute, the seventh lowest property tax rate of any county in the state. And we know that about 11 cents of every property tax dollar collected in Lane County comes to Lane County, with the rest being distributed to the other taxing districts. Our ability and our employees' ability to identify process improvements, to create efficiencies and innovations, to be creative in reducing costs and generating revenue is really what helps us create that long-term financial stability. So we've awarded the Short Mountain team with the highest tier of recognition for our Lane Genuity Award. We had the opportunity to present that several weeks ago out at Short Mountain and recognize the staff. And they are here today, and I'll read off the names. Mike Babcock, Jesse Berger, Mike Babcock, Jerry Brooks, and Bob Fritz are not able to be here today because we needed some folks who are actually running the show at Short Mountain. But they are part of the team. Jesse Berger, Tim Henry, Dave McCauley, Kathy Perini, Leroy Resides, and Jeff Traylor, as well as Keith Hendricks, who's the supervisor at Short Mountain Landfill, and Dan Hurley, our outstanding manager, are all here today, and we want to thank you for the great work. Again, this is an opportunity to recognize incredible work that's happening. Regardless of our award program, the point of the award program is just to capture these things and tell them to the public so there's recognition of what's happening every day in this organization. So Dan and Keith, I want to thank you for the great work and for everyone here.
Please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, thank you for your time this morning and for recognizing the outstanding achievements of this crew. Landfill folks probably don't get a lot of recognition. It's just one of those out of the spotlight jobs. So I appreciate you taking the time this morning. Just to give you an idea of what an impressive result this is, I was at a landfill conference in Reno a couple weeks ago and was speaking to probably the most well-known person in the business, Neil Bolton. He actually wrote the book on landfill operations 20-some years ago. And I had a conversation with him, and he asked me what level of compaction we were getting, and I told him most recently at 2160, and his reaction was just, "Whoa, that's amazing." So for somebody on a national scale to know what a high level that is, far above the 1,600 pounds, which is the industry standard. So they're achieving outstanding results. People probably think, garbage or landfilling is just, throwing garbage in a hole, but it's a pretty technical industry with $1,000 pieces of machinery, compactors with GPS equipment. So it's pretty high tech, and Keith leads an amazing team out there, and they're doing a choreographed dance out there every day to make sure we're delivering the best compaction we can to make this resource last as long as we can for Lane County.
So you're saying that when I put my garbage in the garbage can and it goes out to the curb, that's not the last of it? Something happens after that? Wow.
So it begins a journey from there.
Keith, anything you'd like to add?
I'd just like to thank you for your time as well, and thank everybody here today. And these kinds of things don't happen on accident. To achieve those kind of results requires a team of dedicated operators who understand, what it takes to get that done, and also the support of a manager to provide us the tools and equipment we need to get that done. So thanks to all of them.
Thank you. And Neil Bolton was actually the founder of one of our transfer sites, right? Bolton Hill?
Oh.
Oh, never mind. Probably not the same guy. Okay. Commissioners. Commissioner Lycan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, because Dan and I have had this conversation, so I grew up in Douglas County. That's where I was born and raised. And first of all, I just wanted to compliment our staff on the incredible professionalism and the efficiencies that you really gather. And because growing up there, I stayed in constant communication with our elected officials there. And as you probably are well aware, Douglas County is really in a challenge right now where they're getting close to capacity, and they're going to have no place to put and it's going to cost a lot, significant amounts of money. I'm having conversations with Commissioner Freeman right now about what is the potential of Lane County and Douglas County working together. But I can't say enough, because you're right. I think those involved in the landfill and what you do, you're not necessarily out there. In fact, my guess is you're probably thinking, the less we're in the paper, the better off we are. So, which I would wholeheartedly agree, by the way. But I think it goes without saying that we have clearly one of the best operations that I've seen, especially when you talk to fellow commissioners around the state. You realize just how lucky and fortunate we are here in Lane County. So I can't thank you enough, and especially the conversations I have with my colleagues down in Douglas County, because they are very concerned. They're very concerned, trying to figure out what are we going to do, knowing that they are running up to capacity. And so thank you very, very much for all you do. I very, very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. Commissioner Williams.
Yes, well, congratulations on a job well done. Several things come to mind. Reduce, reuse, recycle, more than just a catchphrase. It's very, very important. And the money that the taxpayers are saved through your incredible efforts of being able to do the compaction with more efficiency, the ability to extend the life of the landfill is an incredible opportunity to keep costs down and extend the life of the landfill. And everybody wins under your excellent leadership. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Sorensen.
Thanks a lot. When I've had the opportunity to have tours out there, it seems like one of the things that you learn as a novice, as a garbage producer, that's my main contact, is you learn that the people that work there are really dedicated. They really know what they're doing. There's a lot of dangerous machinery out there, and there's a lot of garbage, and there's a lot of things that can injure you and the workers. And I just want to say that I know you gave thanks for the managers, but I feel like we need to be thanking all of the people there that do the work. Every time I've been there, it's been a very professional scene. There's no goofing off. There's no, abusing the equipment. It's just all business. And now I'm hearing there's some engineering and techno lingo to describe what the impact of that is. And that's really savings. That's savings to the ratepayers, to the taxpayers who pay in their monthly garbage bill for the cost of operating this. And the public should know that there's no general fund money that goes into this. It's not like your property taxes go for this. This is paid by the people that use it, whether it's somebody like my neighbor that probably has their garbage picked up once every 2 weeks to people that have a little bit more trash, or they have a business and they have a lot of needs there that they pay extra for, and it's really a user system, a user pay system. And so I think when we hear about things like the compaction rate, and we see the impact of having great people doing the work, it really does mean that there's going to be a savings to the ratepayers as a result of this professionalism. And I really appreciate this, and I appreciate all of you for all your hard work, and all the people that aren't here who are probably working out there right now doing the work we need done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Sorensen. Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you. So, we challenged, waste management a couple of years back. You guys came to us showing that we had a shortfall in our projected future budget to set up for the next cell and the operations, the capital side of the landfill. And you wanted a pretty significant increase in rates. And we basically said, we'll go halfway, but we want you guys to close that gap with operational efficiency. And that generated the consultant's report, which generated a lot of public concern about closing rural transfer stations and all that. But what kind of got buried in all that controversy about rural transfer stations was how much you guys closed that gap just at Short Mountain in operational changes. And I just want to say, Keith, that, Coffin Butte's loss was Lane County's gain. Because one of the first things that Keith did was change our operational strategy to keep a smaller amount of the face of the landfill open at a time. And the cost savings in that are just incredible. And, if you have less of the landfill open to the weather, you get less rainfall into the landfill, which means there's less liquors that collect and are picked up by the underdrain system that then we have to haul to Metro Waste to process through the sewage treatment plant, and the cost of paying for that. It's just all those changes you guys have made out there, and the folks that are executing them, the amount of savings is pretty incredible. It's not just the compaction, that 225,000 a year. There's been other changes out there, and I just want you guys to know we're aware of all those other things. It's not just this, and you guys are well deserving of this award. And I really appreciate the work you guys are doing out there to save the ratepayers in this case. I won't say taxpayers because it is a rate funded in the tipping fees that get transferred to the actual people that, the trucking companies that pick up in the neighborhoods, or if you're going to a transfer station, the folks that are using this service pay for it. So you guys are keeping those rates down, at the same time extending a facility that is in short supply and hard to get a new one sited. You want to talk about controversial, try and find a new landfill site. So I really appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozovich. I'm just going to say one thing really quickly. In 1982, a man called W. Edwards Deming wrote a book called Out of the Crisis, and he brought to the world something called total quality management. And that is what you're describing with the landfill, is that the folks sitting in the front row right there are the ones who describe how they can more efficiently do the job and how the landfill can better operate. That filters up to the decision-making level at the board. We make the decisions that y'all prescribe, and that's the way it should work. Consequently, we're more efficient, saving a lot of money, and attracting people from other jurisdictions who should be here instead. Thanks for being here, Keith. So thank you very much for being in this morning. I applaud for the work that you do. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dan. Now we have a 9:45 time certain, but Assessor Coles has said he's a little bit flexible on that one. So we'll continue with the agenda without any time constraints on you at this point, Ms. Miller. Well, I won't say without any, but at this point we'll move forward then with the County Performance Auditor, Shanda Miller. Thank you, Ms. Morris.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Farr. Good morning, Commissioners. So I'm here in front of you today to briefly introduce a class from the University of Oregon. These students are enrolled in a course called Public Management, taught by Professor Ben Clark. Many of these students are first-year graduate students in the Planning, Public Policy and Management program seeking Master's in Public Administration degrees. There's also a couple students who are seeking planning degrees as well. And these students are here today to learn about Lane County government. We're calling this County Day. We have a full agenda planned for them, including tours and presentations by various departments. They will also hear from County Administrator Steve Mokrahysky during the lunch break. These students have a wide variety of interests, including health policy, environmental policy, housing, poverty and food access policy, and local government operations. Also here to assist with the day's events are Mo Young, the county's Equity and Access Coordinator, Laura Vinson, the county's Recruitment Coordinator, Rhonda Smith, the Internship Director for the 3 p.m. program, and then, of course, Professor Ben Clark is here as well. So just a quick introduction. Thanks very much for the opportunity to present this group. We have a very full agenda, so we're actually going to sneak out of here right now. So.
What, miss this?
You just barely got a taste of what we do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here today. I had a chance to talk to maybe some of y'all are sitting here who were in the meeting we had last week. Anybody from that meeting where we talked about that was Professor Clark. Yeah, you were sitting right in the front row, and you left a few minutes early. You missed the cake. So, no, you didn't. So thanks for being here today. Commissioners, anything you'd like to say to the 3 p.m. class?
Just real quickly, Commissioner Chair Farr. So once you leave, it will again look like you're at a Marlins baseball game. Nobody in the stands. So anyway, but thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it. And I think it's always interesting. I think we've all gone through that. What you learn in class, and then when you come and you get to have hands-on, it's a tad bit different. Not taking away what you learn in class, Professor. Anyway, but clearly, I think having the opportunity to get hands-on gives you really kind of a good idea of really what we go through. And how you need to, it's the public interaction that's going to be so key for whatever your careers will be. And I wish you the best, and thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. Then Ms. Miller, thank you for bringing this class in today. Thanks for the work you do. Thanks for the work you're going to do. Thank you. Then we are just about on time then for our 9:45 time certain. We have before us Order 170425-01 in the matter of approving submission of the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance, the CAFA, commonly known CAFA. Assessor Coles.
Good morning, Chair Farr, Commissioners. Welcome, Mr. Williams. Today I'm here for the annual submission and approval by the board for the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance, otherwise known as CAFA, as stated. This is a yearly submission to the Oregon Department of Revenue that provides approximately $1 million to the assessment tax and taxation function for Lane County, which is approximately 17% of our budget. The packet of information that's provided to you has some pretty substantial history behind the CAFA funding history, which started back in 1989 with House Bill 2338. Essentially, three components came together to fund the CAFA dollars that are distributed back to the counties. One is the recording fee, a $9 surcharge added to recordings. Other, it is a portion of the delinquent interest that property tax owners pay. And the other is the investment returns on the money during the year. A fourth component, which was included in the original funding, which was a contribution by the legislature, by the state of Oregon. However, that has declined and been eliminated over the years. Thus, the original part of funding originally was 35 to 40%, going down to around 17% currently. The assessment taxation does a lot of work. We do a lot of work for Lane County, and we do a lot of work for other taxing districts. And one graphic that I wanted to show, thank you, Commissioner Farr, for the suggestion for this graphic, and Devin for putting the graphic together. It shows the amount of money that we do as assessment taxation. Our budget's right around just over $6 million, and primarily that's paid for by county general fund dollars.
I'd ask that it would be $1 million bill, however, but the $1 bills.
Out of the funds that we assess and collect, 11 cents goes back to Lane County. 11 cents. That's a dime and a penny, not very much. 46 cents goes to the school districts, 32 cents goes to the cities, and 7 cents goes to the libraries, parks, and water districts, 4 cents rounding out to the fire districts. So the majority of the work that we do in assessment taxation does go not only to assessment taxation and Lane County for funding for the county, but it goes to the other districts. At that, I'm trying to keep my presentation fairly short, leave it for questions. And so just wrapping up, I really appreciate the support from the county board and the county administration for the assessment taxation function for Lane County.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Coles. And I'm going to say a couple of things before others have a chance to comment on this. And I'm glad that a member of the press is here to see this today, because this is a really significant graphic that we have on the board right there. I wish that more people from the city of Eugene were here looking and understanding that for the taxes that are generated inside the property taxes generated inside the city of Eugene gets about 3 times as much as the county gets. How much do we bill the city of Eugene for that?
I think the last bill I sent was, actually, I don't know, nothing.
That was the number I was thinking, the number that came to mind. So we don't bill the city of Eugene for that. We pass the money right along. However, your staff is paid for by the Lane County budget. Right. Correct. Okay, so consequently, the city of Eugene basically gets the free use of you, the free use of your staff, the free use of the facilities, and all of the checks that you write, all the money that you pass along is there's no charge to the city of Eugene. Or the city of Springfield, or the city of Crestville, or Cottage Grove. Okay, just wanted to establish that. Commissioners, Commissioner Sorensen.
First of all, thanks very much for going over this important work that you do, and also the breakdown to, again, remind the public that, you know, we get about 11% of the property taxes collected within the county. I'm curious what the cost of doing this work is. In other words, running the assessment and taxation function. Some of it comes from the state of Oregon and the taxpayers, income taxpayers and other taxpayers of the state of Oregon out of the state's general fund. And some of it comes from the Lane County taxpayer, the property taxpayer, through our Lane County general fund. What's your breakdown on that, and what's your total?
So the breakdown as far as for expenditures and costs, again, about $1 million is recouped from, actually it's Lane County dollars, because we are a quote a donor county, and that our recordings and delinquent interest exceed what we receive back. So we essentially subsidize not only the different cities and school districts in Lane County, but actually the counties statewide.
Other counties.
Other counties. The legislature, the state funds has actually dwindled down. And so the last time the research that I did was that the CAFA fund does not have a legislative contribution to that fund. It's been removed over the years.
So there's none?
There's none.
And so the CAFA funds do not come from the income taxpayer, the Oregon income taxpayer.
Correct. It comes directly from Lane County.
Yeah, the money that we collect.
Citizens.
Money we collect from our citizens.
Correct.
Okay, and what's your overall budget?
Overall budget is right around $6 million.
Okay. And so one of the things that we had on this board years ago was we had our more fiscally minded and more conservative members so mad at the state at their dwindling amount of money and the increasing percentage that went on to Lane County taxpayers that the assessor would come in with some trepidation that they were going to basically not have the board approve this and basically not ask for the money because the board was increasingly embittered over the failure of the legislature to give the money. Now, in recent years, I think, you know, it's just been, well, that's the way it is. And we can either apply for this money or not. Well, not applying for the money would not be a really bright move because then we have to pay even more money from our limited funding to do this because we're certainly going to collect these taxes one way or the other. And so in recent years, it's just been, well, that's the way it is. But I take the view that, you know, if there's something we could do, and I mean something creative other than ask them for the money, I mean, is there a way for us to have any impact on this? I mean, I'm trying to think maybe Commissioner Farr and I could come up with some ideas of, well, what it's like to be on the other end. When I was on the other end, when I was a senator, I had no idea that $6 million, it took $6 million to collect the property taxes for Lane County, and that, at least at that time, a big chunk of it came from the state. And now a smaller and smaller amount comes from the state. So, you know, this is a state responsibility. Funding schools is a state responsibility. And that's where, you know, about half of it goes. And so I would just like to, you know, redouble our efforts or put some energy around this, maybe get our legislators together. You know, I mean, obviously now isn't a good time because they're so busy, but, you know, we need to educate them about it. And I'm just speaking from some distant memory of, well, if the county had ever approached me as a senator and said, look at this, you want us to collect these taxes for these schools that you spend half your entire budget on. They spend half their entire budget on schools now. And it seems like we should be working together on this.
I agree wholeheartedly. Two aspects. One is the presentation today and the information that you provided, and then it's provided. I'm very happy there is a member of the media today to see that all the work that is done, not only on the behalf of Lane County, but on the behalf of the school districts and the other local jurisdictions in Lane County. Also, working with legislature, there have been several bills proposed. Unfortunately, this year they kind of stalled in session.
Thank you. And before I go to Commissioner Lyken, I'll mention when I was in the legislature, I was in House Revenue, which is where all revenue is generated for the state. And in House Revenue, we met daily, and it was the longest legislative session in history, was in 2003. We met all clear into August. We met every single day. Not even once did anything approaching this graphic come before the House Revenue Committee. So the members of the Revenue Committee weren't really fully aware or made aware of the presentation that you're giving us this morning. The fact that that the 32 cents, of the 11 cents that we collect, we are paying for the balance of the function. So it's something that I will agree with Commissioner Sorensen that at some point we'll get our local delegation together and explain to them. Some of them have a greater level of understanding than others. Certainly the freshmen who are up there have other things on their mind other than how to deal with county taxation. But it's something that's very, very important. And it's, as you can see, from 46 cents going to schools and the great discussion that's going on in the legislature about schools right now. The importance of understanding how counties bring in the tax money and how the money is distributed. Thanks very much for being here, Mike. Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, you know, I usually rant on this issue, I think, every time that you come forward, and I won't rant too much. But I think Commissioner Sorensen brings up something that's very important. The longtime chair of the House Revenue Committee is one of our own local legislators. We have met with him consistently for the last several sessions, including leadership at AOC, including myself, including Alex Kyler. We've tried to educate him on this over and over and over again, and all he would have to do is look at this and schedule something and talk about this. Or how about, and you talked about the original, when it was originally written, CAFA, if they would just actually keep their commitments from the original law, you'd be receiving, I don't remember the number, but it's around 40% more revenue than what you're receiving now based on the formula that was originally put in place. And I think what it tells you is how really inefficient and ineffective the legislature is on managing the budget and actually putting forth something. And so that's my rant today, and I'm going to keep it just at that, because I don't think we're going to get away from the CAFA grant. I think that's life. But I like an idea where you have somebody like Commissioner Sorensen and Commissioner Farr, who have served in the legislature, are now on the local government side, so they get to see both sides. So anytime you have an opportunity where you have someone who served in the legislature, now whether it's a county, in particular county government, talk about an opportunity to educate, to talk about this is what we're up against. And because frankly, Mike, as you well know, you your leadership and the assessors as a whole. I know you all have had conversations over and over again with Chair Barnhart constantly about this. And frankly, it is in his corner that all he would have to do is schedule something and have this discussion. And then we could put a full court press. Because I can guarantee you, it just wouldn't be us. It'd be just about every assessor and commissioner throughout the state that would go before his committee. And just ask him, why don't you just stay true to the original way the law was originally written so you could receive that additional? It is about 40%, isn't it? It's somewhere around that number.
The original number was 35 to 40%.
There you go.
Actually, I think it peaked around 44% one year.
And and so think about that. We should be receiving 40% more dollars today based on the CAFA formula than what Mike's than the assessor's budget is receiving. And that's the reality. And so I'm glad this was brought up. Pete, I think it's a great idea. I would welcome that if you and Pat in particular, with your experience in Salem, your experience here, to really sit down and talk about, I know Mike would probably be more than happy to go with you and talk to our local delegation, say this is the reality of what we're facing and why aren't you just upholding the original law the way it was written? Would just be, I think we'd all be doing cartwheels by that time. 40% more revenue, I'd be thrilled. Anyway, that's my soapbox of the day. But Pete, that's your fault. So, but I would completely, I think it's a great idea personally, and I would support the two of you having that conversation with your experience here and your experience in Salem. I think it makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Mike. By the way, thanks for all you do and your staff. And I don't want to let that go because you do. It's high quality, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lycan. Instead of getting money, we're actually taxpayer money from Lane County is being siphoned off and redistributed throughout the state. That is the fact. And Rep. Barnhart and I were on revenue together. He wasn't the chair at the time. He's been on there a long, long time. He knows how things work. Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you. So the actual application we make to the state is actually a promise to spend a certain amount of money on assessment and taxation. And if we don't meet that expenditure in any quarter, they withhold our CAFA grant. And we're actually promising to spend about $6.5 million, $6,469,126 to be exact.
Correct, and that includes, that includes several functions beyond assessment taxation, including the Board of Property Tax Appeals and real property officers.
Right. So basically, we're making this, our application is a promise to the state, ahead of the budget committee and everything else, that we are going to spend this amount. So, and basically what we're going to get back is approximately $1 million. If that's 17% of 6 million, basically is $1 million. So we're putting $5 million from other sources. Now I know there's some fees and stuff we collect. It's not all general fund, but it is a significant amount of Lane County money that gets spent on collecting taxes for, 89 cents out of a dollar goes to other places. And we don't charge those folks for that. So, it's out of the Lane County, out of Lane County's 11 cents, we spend about, close to $5 million collecting for those other 89 cents. So, we're already taking a hit right off the top on our 11 cents where we're subsidizing the revenue streams to cities, schools, fire districts, and other places. A while back, when we were making budget cuts, we had to ask the state for a waiver because one of the things about getting a CAFA grant is you're supposed to keep a certain level of activity and cycle of assessing properties and all that. Are we still having to get a special waiver from the state to get our CAFA grant?
We don't currently have a waiver. However, they put us on notice every year, either in writing or verbally, that we are essentially treading water with our current staff. We cut positions in 2011, 12 or 2 positions. 12, 13, I believe it was 11 positions plus 1 was reassigned. So that's 14 positions that were lost over a little more than 5 years ago.
Yeah. And I do notice there are a couple more FTE coming on in this proposed budget, which is a good thing. Because, you know, one of the things, as we had to make these cuts when we lost federal funding, the federal forest funding, can you talk a little bit about how often we're actually getting out to reappraise real property and, you know, make sure that somebody hasn't added a whole new addition or whatever, you know, to a home, and we actually have an accurate tax roll? Is it, you know, what's our current cycle? I mean, do we have I think when we talked about Springfield, there are places we hadn't gotten to in over 20 years.
So this year we started doing a reappraisal project in the residential side in the Springfield area. Many of those properties had been looked at for 20 some odd years. We also started a reappraisal project on the commercial side for manufactured structure, commercial land, parks. That had been, I don't know, it's been quite a long time, at least 20, 25 years for those parks. There is no cycle that's required anymore by the state. There used to be the 6-year cycle that we'd keep on. I'm hoping for a 12-year cycle at some point in time. We'll see if we can get there. The work that the staff does in assessment taxation is incredible as far as for amount of work that they do. And just to do the Springfield reappraisal project, we had to prioritize sales verification. So you kind of rob Peter to pay Paul to do a reappraisal.
We don't like that expression.
So kind of what I'm getting at is we're obviously not staffed to be efficient in our appraisal process, which means we're not collecting what we should be actually collecting based on the real value that's out there for those 89 cents out of a dollar folks out there. And, you know, AOC put forward a bill that would have actually helped us fund our appraisal process by allowing us to actually assess a 1% administrative fee on that 89 cents. So we would have gotten another, 0.89 cents, so we would have been getting, and that would have helped us pay for that $5 million that the state isn't paying for right now, and doing all these assessments and getting a cycle, closer, should be really 6 years. We shouldn't be letting, improvements go unreassessed even, for such a long time. And ultimately, it would generate more tax dollars as taxing districts, but there were certain, districts and municipalities that just went crazy because we actually wanted to have the ability to keep their tax rolls accurate and assume that we were going to waste that money. And I really don't believe they understand where we are and how we're funded, as well as the legislature understanding that. And it's a crisis, ultimately, that's going to affect their ability to function, because we're getting so far behind. 20 to 25 years in assessments is ridiculous, and it's not fair. It's not fair to the person that hasn't made any improvements to their property and is paying the actual value versus the person that did and has not been reassessed and has been skating by for 20 years on that improvement. So I really, I'm not going to be one of those folks that holds up this grant or anything like that. But, when we were actually going through that process of asking for the waivers, I know the state was scared to death we were going to turn A&T back over to the state.
Absolutely.
Because they don't want our 170-some thousand tax accounts to take care of, because they can't do it on $6 million. They know damn well they can't. And I really strongly want the folks from other jurisdictions that were objecting to our 1% fee that would have helped us increase their actual tax revenues really need to come talk to us before they make comment next time. That was really, the one piece of testimony that I know was submitted by one of our jurisdictions was insulting at best. So
I concur with that. Thank you, Commissioner Bozevich, and I hope that that these words are passed along. Mr. Coles, thank you very much. Ms. Ashbridge, thank you for this great graphic that we'll not just use today, but we have that to carry. In fact, I've asked for several copies of that full size to distribute. So thank you very much, Ms. Mokrajewski. Thank you for this presentation. Mr. Coles, anything else?
I'll just thank you very much for the time for the presentation, and again, giving the support to the assessment taxation staff, because really we couldn't do it without the hard workers that we have in our department.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the hard work you do. Efficient, accurate, unheralded. Commissioner Lycan.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move approval of Order 17-04-25-01 in the matter of approving submission of the County Assessment Function Funding Assistance, better known as the CAFA grant application to the Oregon Department of Revenue for FY 17-18.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Bozievich. Discussion to the motion. Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Williams, for your first vote as a county commissioner.
Thanks, Mike.
We do have an executive session, but we have a couple of items of business that we do have time to take care of, Mr. Mokrajewski, prior to moving up to executive session. I've been in touch, and Mr. Dingle is expecting us a little late for the executive session. So we have before us a consent calendar. Our consent calendar will be passed in a single motion by the Board of Commissioners. No separate discussion of each item. Commissioner Lycan.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
And sometimes it can be very, very brief. Moved and seconded. Moved by Commissioner Lycan, seconded by Commissioner Bozievich. Discussion to the motion. For those who are watching, if you go to our agenda for today, click the red view material. It'll give you the very specifics of the items that are being passed on today's consent calendar. Before as a motion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. And we'll move right along to county administration. Mr. Mokrajewski, any announcements today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple here. We are, Greg Rickoff, Christine Moody, Robert Tintle, and I are preparing for a call with Moody's tomorrow. We have a rating review for the refunding that the board approved in March. And so the rating agency always reviews your bond rating as you go out for a refinancing proposal. So we had a meeting yesterday and are preparing for that. And I just want to share with the board, we're of course very pleased with our AA2 rating recently from Moody's and the recognition of the financial stability that we're beginning to create in Lane County, a reflection of good financial management and stewardship of taxpayer resources, not a reflection of the level of service that we're providing. We know that we're underfunded in some critical service areas, but we are responsibly managing the limited resources that we do collect. So we'll have that call tomorrow, and we've been analyzing other local governments in the region and throughout the state that have higher bond ratings than Lane County, and I will tell you, while we're pleased with the AA2, I really feel like we should be at a AA1, if not a AAA, which is the highest rating. That may or may not be feasible this time around, but we're going to really push the county's case with Moody's tomorrow and make it clear that our low debt ratio, our strong reserves that we've maintained for several years, the head-on approach that we've had to financial management and reducing internal expenses without cutting services, the strong leadership team that we have in place, the focused effort through a strategic plan and long-range financial planning, which are all things that bond rating agencies are concerned about. We'll push that. So just want to make a note of that. That piece. Yesterday we had our second rural coffee connection, so we're trying to bring together Lane County and LCOG and other regional partners that are providing services to rural cities in Lane County and make sure, particularly with our new rural economic prosperity liaison, Kim Thompson, and Sarah Means in our economic development office, that we're pulling together and really having a conversation with the various staff in Lane County and other jurisdictions around how we're engaging with rural, because we spend a lot of time supporting and focusing on efforts in Eugene and Springfield. We also want to make sure that we're supporting the other 10 cities and unincorporated areas in Lane County. So just want to make a note of that. We continue to look at areas where we're providing service. There's a great example brought up yesterday between Kim Thompson and Mark Rust in land management about an application from a commercial entity in Dexter that was initially thinking that they wanted a rezoning of their property, and the cost for rezoning was in the range of $25,000, a significant cost to do what they were thinking they wanted to do. And with Kim Thompson's support and land management's collaboration, they identified a path to pursue a special use permit, which was significantly less and within the budget that the business was able to cover and really meets their needs. So it was a small example of the kind of things that we're trying to do to understand, to sort of break out of just the silo mentality of exactly what our focus in a particular area of the county may be, but really to try to understand the different impacts and the needs of different entities, residents, businesses, and others in the community. So good effort happening there, led by Sarah and Kim. I'll be with the Eugene City Manager on Thursday, presenting as a guest lecturer in the U of O's leadership class, so looking forward to that. I've done that the last couple years. Another great way to promote Lane County and talk about what we do as a county government different from cities, and another I think positive way for us to try to attract the talent of the future into our organization. And finally, I would share with you that next Wednesday, May 3rd, is our semi-annual Spring Equity Summit. So we do two equity, a fall and a spring equity summit for county employees, and invite the board that if you're interested and available, it's a half day, May 3rd from 1 to 5 p.m. At the Public Works Delta office. Let me or Mo Young know if you'd like to attend so we can get you signed up. It fills up every year. We have to turn people away because we've seen a significant increase in participation in our equity summits. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. And then on County Council, Mr. Dingle asked that I make one announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mokryski. So with a 2 AA rating that we just received, which is, as far as I can see, is one of the highest ratings of any jurisdiction in the state, we're not satisfied with that.
No, we're not. We're going to keep pushing always pushing for more.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anything for the county administrator? I see nothing. Then we'll move along to County Council announcements.
And Mr. Dingle, I didn't wear my orange tie to do it in Mr. Dingle, but I'll do my best. He's out of the office today, but he asked that I share with you that as we all know, Stephen Voorhees, who is a long-time outstanding asset in County Council, who died recently and was, had retired but had come back and helped as extra help in County Council. Steve and the team in County Council have really been working to restructure and look at what their needs are going forward. We've worked and made sure that resources are available for them to have a full-time position there for the great work. I think as everyone, the board certainly knows, Steve and the County Council team have done a great job of pulling particularly the litigation-related work in-house and significantly reducing costs, really focusing on supporting our workers' compensation efforts and general liability and risk efforts, and we've seen a steady decline in costs for workers' compensation, general liability, and risk-related areas. So we want to continue to make investments that will create efficiencies and reduce risk and costs for us. So they went through a recruitment process in County Council, a really outstanding pool of talent, and I feel like this is a little bit insult to injury here that I have to announce that he's hired Sarah Chinsky as the new attorney in County Council. Insult to injury because she works for us in county administration as a senior management analyst, and as the board knows, she's done just a fantastic job on legislative analysis work and legal analysis work, Measure 91, sick leave policies, more recently our equity work. She's just been an incredible asset to Lane County and to county administration. And I will say, with all of the talk about U of O students, Sarah Chinsky and Sarah Means are both examples of individuals who started off as interns. Sarah Chinsky was a graduate from the law school at the U of O. Sarah Means a graduate of 3PM program. in graduate school. Both started off as interns. Sarah Chinsky is a senior management analyst. She's now going to be assistant county counsel. Sarah Means was an intern, moved up to a coordinator position, basically where Kim Thompson was, and now the manager of the division. So these are the kind of things that we can and we should be doing to attract talent and then create opportunities for those outstanding individuals to accelerate through the organization. So congratulations to Steve and the county council team, and particularly to Sarah for a well-earned opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Mokarakis. Any response, comments? Commissioner Lyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as Steve, as you know, I'm a long supporter of talent and making sure that we surround ourselves. But I will tell you, as a longtime employer, there's nothing better than hiring within. And especially somebody who understands our culture, understands the operations itself. They may be going to a different department. And so I just, while I would agree, it's a bit of a loss to you as our administrator, but it's a huge gain to legal. And I want to congratulate our county council Dingle on bringing Ms. Chinsky on as to his department. It's just nice to know that, and I think you made a really good case there. That's exactly what we're looking for. So when we're seeing the students today, who knows? Maybe an intern here, and then maybe a position later on, and whatever they're interested in doing in the future. But I think that's just a prime example, not only from the University of Oregon, but the hiring within, and really so. It's one department's gain, yours loss, but it's the Board of Commissioners' great gain, no matter what. So thank you very much for sharing that, and really appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyken. And, one of the great attributes of a great manager is recognizing talent in an organization. And sometimes from personal experience, recognize when talent exceeds your own talent and you allow them to move along to a position that allows them to use their talent. So Ms. Chinsky's, you listed a few things that she's great at. Well, I'll dig deeper into housing and alternate housing methods. And she's done worldwide research that she, in her own spare time, because she loves doing it, has provided, some great documents regarding housing. So thank you, Ms. Chinsky. Congratulations. Her office will actually be a little closer to mine now, so I'm pretty happy. Anything else for the council or administrator? Then I'm going to prepare to read us into executive session. At the stroke of the gavel, we'll be moving up into the BCC conference room for the executive session, and we will return here at 1:30, at which point we'll return into regular session. We will be moving into executive session. The Board of County Commissioners will meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions and to consult with the council concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6602E and H, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed above. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. We reserve the right to come back into public session should the need arise. We are now in executive session.